Tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name's Mehboob Khan. I'm leader of Kirklees Council. I've been a councillor here in Kirklees since 1996 at the age of 27. And the first article that Awaaz ran on me in 1996 was to say, Mr. Khan, councillor 110%. Because in that article I said I want to give it 110%.
How do you feel about your prospects in retaining your Greenhead seat?
I don't take anything for granted. I certainly don't take any single vote for granted. I'm working very hard to put forward my own experience, my knowledge, and also my track record to the voters in Greenhead Ward, and asking them to vote for me on the basis that I'm the best candidate in this election, and that I also will be able to deliver on the promises and the commitments that I've given to Greenhead Ward voters.
How do you think Labour will fare in Kirklees?
I think Labour will generally fare well this time in Kirklees, but we've got to ensure that Labour is giving people an opportunity to be able to engage with our candidates and our activists, and we're listening and acting on people's concerns, and that we have a far greater responsibility than the other parties, because we are more than likely than others to be running the council after the 3rd of May. So we've got to ensure that our key priorities are delivered for local people over the next 4 years.
And nationally?
Nationally, I expect the party to gain hundreds of seats. The prediction is about 500 councillor seat gains, which is good for us. However, we've got to ensure that the Labour Party is strengthened at grassroots level to ensure that we win the 2015 general election.
Which key issues do you think will decide this election?
The key issues coming up on the doorstep are very much different than they were 12 months ago. The key issues around employment, it's around people feeling that their household living costs have rocketed astronomically over the last 12 months, and they're feeling the pinch, and also the unfairness in the way that the government is making its cuts.
What do you think to your opponents in this election?
I think my opponents are decent candidates. I think they're fighting a clean campaign like I am. They will be on the doorstep like I have been every single day. I don't believe that any of them have my track record of experience or delivering for the local community, and I'm a bit worried that the Conservatives are taking my voters for granted, because their candidate has applied for a place at Liverpool University. I hope she's successful. I hope she goes on to have an excellent academic career, but it is a bit tongue-in-cheek when the Tories put up a 19-year-old candidate, knowing that later this year she'll be away full-time from Huddersfield, and some of the voters who have told me that they voted Tory in the past are now saying they're not going to vote Tory because they just do not want their vote to be taken for granted.
Okay. One of the key issues for many voters will be cuts. You said that there was pain in this budget that was passed in February. How can you expect someone to vote for you when this Labour-led administration is committing to carrying out these cuts?
Yeah. We have to set a balanced budget each year in this council. Now, the background to all of this is very important to understand. Kirklees Council has had a cut of £57 for every man, woman and child in the borough. George Osborne, the Chancellor's Council, has had a cut of just £10 per head in population, and David Cameron's Council of West Oxfordshire has had a cut of just £23 per head of population. If Kirklees Council, and like many other northern councils, if we were treated the same way as David Cameron's council, we would have an extra £14 million each year to spend on services. We would not be cutting a single service. However, I am very, very worried about the future. This government has made it quite clear, the Chancellor said it in his last statement, is that they're expecting over the next 4 years just as deep cuts as we've experienced over the last 3 years. What that means is that Kirklees Council might be cut by another £57 per head of population. And then I have to be absolutely honest with our residents and our businesses. Then they will see draconian cuts in services, because you can only squeeze an organisation so much to be efficient. After that, then things start falling over, things then have to be stopped, and residents will receive less services.
The Kirklees Tories say that you're deliberately savaging frontline services. Do you not think savings could be found elsewhere?
The Tories would say that, but however, when the Tories are in meetings with me in this very room, they're congratulating me on the fact that we've made 25% reductions in our back office functions, that we've got better procurement now, that we're using our assets, our buildings better. And the answer to the Tories is, go back to your masters and tell them that local people in Kirklees should be treated the same as the residents in West Oxfordshire or East Cheshire, where Cameron and Osborne live. And if they can't persuade Cameron and Osborne to treat us the same, then I think they should look seriously at taking on Labour Party membership.
The trade unions have also rounded on Kirklees Labour group over these cuts, haven't they?
The trade unions, quite rightly, are going to be campaigning for their staff and for their staff's terms and conditions. Kirklees Council will lose around 2,000 members of staff. I'm very, very sorry to lose a single person of employment from ourselves.
Why was the black minority ethnic community not consulted in the lead up to the budget?
In the run up to the budget, we carried out an extensive consultation. We had on our website information, and local residents and voluntary sector organisations were able to leave their views on the website.
But at a meeting at the IMWS Community Centre, Saeed Laher of the South Asian Consortium Kirklees said, we need to meet Adrian Lithgow and the councillors. As a community, that's what we need to ask for. It's not an option, they have to come. Ibrahim Hussain, a community coordinator, said we weren't consulted with. Clearly they've done some work, but not enough. What do you say to people?
Firstly, I think we can always improve upon our consultation engagement processes. This year was far better than previous years, and next year will be better than the current year. And I think the lessons learned from that particular engagement event was that we should ask in advance the key issues, the key questions that people can ask for, because the council budget is over £1 billion and officers are not able to always give on-the-spot detailed responses to questions that have been asked. And secondly, as part of learning from this year's consultation engagement, we need to be engaging and working with communities throughout the year, not just waiting until January or February when it's time for the budget setting process.
Do you agree with these cuts being implemented by central government?
I think central government, whoever would be in government, would have to make some very difficult choices and some very difficult decisions. I believe that this government has shown its inexperience and immaturity by cutting very quick and very deep.
But wouldn't it be better to cut the deficit now so as to pay less interest later?
No, and the point I was going to finish on is that this government is cutting very, very deep and very quick. As a result of that, unemployment has shot up. There are 1 million young people unemployed. The deficit has therefore increased, actually.
Let's move on to the LDF proposals. Would you say that the LDF proposals, which will see Greenbelt land in Chidswell, in Thornhill, being destroyed, are a necessary evil?
The local development plan is absolutely necessary to ensure that over the next 20 years we continue to have housing that meets the needs of the local population, and also that employers are able to create jobs that are needed for the area. This will generate private sector investment within our area of £500 million over the next 10 years. And at a time when the public sector is having to make massive cuts in jobs, then private sector employment has to be encouraged in order to take up the losses of jobs. So both at Chidswell and at Cooper Bridge, and also at Dewsbury South, the allocation of land for housing or employment is extremely important. The fact of the matter is that Kirklees is a wonderful place to live. Towns like Batley, Dewsbury, Huddersfield, Holmfirth have an excellent supply of open green spaces and abundant land, and 70% of Kirklees is in the green belt. And our plan is simply allocating 1% of the green belt over the next 20 years to create thousands of jobs. If I didn't take those tough decisions at these difficult times, then in years to come the residents of Kirklees would never forgive me. My legacy will not be leaving a borough with chronic unemployment, with no opportunities for young people, with mass social problems. I want to ensure that Kirklees and its towns continue to remain prosperous and good places to live.
One of the key objectives of the LDF proposals are obviously to help deal with the housing shortages in Kirklees. You obviously feel the implementation will help. But what about empty homes already in Kirklees? Do you not think that they should be filled before destroying wonderful greenbelt land?
Yeah. There are just 3,500 empty so-called homes within Kirklees. Many of these homes are actually on the market to be sold. Some of them are where the occupants are in long-term stay in hospital or in social care settings, and even if every single empty home was brought into use, we would not be able to tackle the issues of housing need.
The other aspect of the LDF proposals is the industrial properties to be built. I believe you touched on it. Chidswell in particular. Why not redevelop brownfield sites along Bradford Road as proposed by the Tories?
The brownfield sites on Bradford Road are in absolute multiple ownership. In order to try and get those brownfield sites into single large enough sites to create the type of industrial units that are required, it would take another 20 years to do that, and we just haven't got the time to be able to make that happen. And let's get this quite clear as well. The Tories are happy with mass unemployment. The Tories are happy with overcrowding and chronic health problems, because they do not serve those communities that are affected by these issues. Tories will look after Tory voters. I want to be a council leader that serves every person in Kirklees, not just those who I rely on to get elected like the Tories do. I've got to make sure that when I stop being council leader sometime in the future, that I leave behind a legacy of stronger communities, more prosperous, more healthier communities. And I've got to work hard for every single resident in the borough, not just those who have got the ability to make a good quality of life for themselves, but those who are living in some of the most poorest neighbourhoods, and those who need a hand up in life to be able to achieve and fulfil themselves.
Talking about Conservatives, they have this pet project of splitting Kirklees Council up into two. Do you think there is a disconnect between North and South Kirklees?
I don't believe there's a disconnect between North and South Kirklees. I believe that across the whole of Kirklees, all communities want to be able to be involved in decisions that affect them. Our approach towards doing this is to ensure that local people, through area committees, are involved in decisions that affect their areas. And it's quite clear that if we were to go ahead down the Tory approach of splitting North and South Kirklees, it wouldn't solve the problems of this disconnect, because people who live in, for example, Cllr or Birstall would have an equal disconnect from Dewsbury Town Hall that they have from Huddersfield Town Hall. So it's wrong to say that. Furthermore, at a time of very difficult decisions and cuts in council budgets, we just simply can't afford to spend around £40 million reorganising the council. And finally, the nail in the coffin of this Tory idea is that Eric Pickles, the local government Secretary of State for the Conservative government, has said that there will be no reorganisations of any councils.
Is it a good idea to start turning off streetlights, especially when crime and burglaries are not on the up?
It is a good idea to turn off streetlights. It all depends on which streetlights are turned off and for how long. Now, like I said, 70% of Kirklees is in the Greenbelt. Many of our streetlights are lighting up country lanes where there are absolutely no homes. At the moment, we're experimenting with different types of turning off of streetlights. Some dimming of streetlights, turning off every other street light in some areas, and in some areas turning off streetlights completely or decommissioning streetlights completely. This is an experiment that's going on, and the reason behind it is fairly straightforward. The council spends about £3 million each year on energy costs.
Thank you for speaking to us. Best of luck.
No, thank you very much for the time and the opportunity.
No problem.